Good evening, everyone. We are still waiting for a few people to come in. All right, so we will start. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Northern English Language Teachers Collaboration Network Sabah, or better known as NELCoNS, I'd like to warmly welcome all of you to tonight's Community of Practice session. This webinar is part of our ongoing series of NELCoNS webinars, which consists of a 12-week webinars where we aim to share best practices, classroom strategies, as well as practical insight to support English teachers in the Northern Zone and, of course, across Malaysia. Tonight's focus is very timely. SPM English Paper 2, Part 3, as the writing exam. This is one area where our students often face challenges, and I believe today's session will be very meaningful for all of us as an English teacher, especially if we are teaching the upper form, either the Form 4 or the Form 5 students. So before we start, please allow me to read a few housekeeping rules. Let me share how the session is going to be conducted for this evening. We will have 45 minutes of presentation by Cikgu Syaharil, and this will be followed by a 15-minute Q&A session at the end of the 45 minutes. So overall, we will have an hour session. If you have any question during the talk, please type them in the chat box of the platforms you are in, either Facebook or YouTube, and we will address them during the 15 minutes Q&A. And at the end of the session, we will also share the registration link in the form of Google form, which is for us to keep as the record attendance, where we will be able to key in your IC number for SPL KPM. So just remember to fill it in at the end of the session. And also, we will have a reflection Padlet. I really need your support on this because the British Council will be looking at the reflection Padlet. The link will be shared also at the end of the session. And lastly, don't forget to follow the NELCoNS Facebook page as well as the YouTube page for updates on our upcoming webinars in this series. Now, let me introduce our speaker for this evening session. Our speaker is Cikgu Muhammad Syaharil bin Madlan from SMK Pekan, Kota Belud, Sabah. He is a dedicated educator with 21 years of experience and has served as mentor, facilitator, as well as master trainer. He is also the founder of IdeaFactory, where he has led district teams, contributed to state modules, and shared best practices widely. He is a Southeast Asia Youth Leadership Program 2017 alumnus, and also the Fulbright 2003 alumnus. On top of that, He actively shares resources through his YouTube channel. Now, let us welcome Cikgu Syaharil, or better known as Cikgu Aril, for our session tonight. Hi, how are you, Cikgu Syaharil?
I'm feeling great. Thank you so much.
All right. So, what can we expect? What's the session going to be like this evening?
Okay, so I have cracked my brain actually for these past few days. I'm thinking a little bit worried about the content that I would like to share tonight, but I have some tips, some reminders, and maybe some teaching ideas that I would like to share with everyone tonight.
Awesome. So I would definitely think that you are going to do fine this evening. So yeah,
Hope
without further ado, the floor is yours. So yes.
Correct. All right, everyone. So my name is Muhammad Syaharil bin Madlan. I am from Kota Belud, teaching at SMK Pekan, Kota Belud. And so I'm going to just go uh, on to our slides. Okay, so the title that was given to me is writing. I can say that this is also one of my favorite skills, and I have quite an extensive experiences, I would say, in like sharing teaching ideas and also designing a lot of worksheets for writing. All right, so let's get on with this. Okay, just a little bit more about me. Mr. Thank you for the introduction, Mr. Jennedy. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak to all of you tonight on this platform. It's such a privilege, actually.
You're most
So,
welcome. You're most welcome.
so I was a master trainer for a few of the courses during the cascading of our CFR aligned curriculum. Now it's known as English curriculum. It's not aligned anymore. It's already the alignment is already completed. So I was a master trainer for the a few courses like curriculum induction, formative assessment. I was also classroom observer for Form 3 and Form 4, and some of my passions like writing and creating worksheets, networking, collaborating with anybody who's interested to talk about teaching ideas, and having deep conversations, and also singing in my pastime. Yeah, and also not to mention, if you um, notice this short form right here, CRTSEAL, refers to current um, culturally relevant teaching and social emotional learning. So this is also one of my passions. When I was introduced on this, when I went to the US for the Fulbright program. Okay, now. Okay, so when I mentioned about I was the master trainer for our English curriculum, right? So I would like to take this opportunity to maybe refresh everyone's knowledge about what are the essence of our English curriculum. Okay, I hope you can see this. If it's not clear, I'm just going to read it for you. Okay, so the heart of our English curriculum is the can-do statements. This is very important for us to have the mindset that will actually help us in our continuous support to help our students to progress in their learning. Okay, so it's a can-do statements. We focus on the positive things that the students can do in writing or also in the other skills. It focuses on communication, okay, uh, progression, a lot of supports from peers and from teachers. It is skill based and is also a student centered curriculum, right? So, what does it mean by student centered? Like, where do you actually see student centered in this curriculum? Can you see it in the SOW or can you see it in the curriculum? Is it stated anywhere? So, I actually asked this question to the master trainer from Cambridge, and she uh, mentioned that student centered is actually the ethos of the curriculum. So I think all these ideas, all these essence is very important because it's going to help you to design your teaching, um, and it's going to support your teaching and learning process in the classroom. Okay, so why is it that I mentioned this? Because you are going to notice some of these principles as I am presenting the contents tonight. Okay, okay. Now, um, so I am going to talk about these two approaches here. I think what I really believe in, or it actually my principle when I try to overcome the issues or problems in my own classroom. So the students will be divided into two big categories, or like two big groups: the able ones, the more able ones, and less able ones. So these are like labels, or the terms that we use um, when we talk about the students' ability from the perspective of the English curriculum. Okay, more able ones and less able ones. So for the more able students, um, so at this point, not a few months before the exam, I think they it's not the problem that they have maybe less language, or maybe lack of vocabulary, or maybe they're still struggling with grammar, right? So what we should focus on at this point for the more able ones is how is it that they will not do mistakes while answering the question, because good candidates actually do mistakes while answering the exam questions. So how is it that you can support them to craft the ideas? So because they know the basics, they know the theory, like what is a structure for an effective paragraph, or how to write a good introduction, for example. So they are now on the next level, which is they need to know how to actually use their creativity to craft the ideas. Okay, and then we need to keep on polishing their talents. So for the less able ones, one thing that is really working in my experience is that because everything is going to be so difficult from the eyes, or from the perspective of students who are still struggling with the English. So the best way to do this is we need to break down skills into like manageable parts, and then we are going to keep supporting them in that way. So the way I do this, because I really like to design focused and specific worksheet. So I'm going to break down like a big skill into small parts, and I'm going to design like specific worksheet or practices or exercises for my students. All right, now, so I'm going to, so these are, this probably sounds like very maybe it sounds like a lot of ideas and just theories. I will give you examples on like what I actually meant by what I've mentioned so far. Okay. All right. Now, so let's go to worksheet number 1. So I'm just going to show you the sample of the things that I created with my colleague, with my friend last year. And based on the insights that we got from the previous SPM papers, from past year's SPM papers. Okay, like so for example, so I'm just going to, because tonight we're going to talk on or focus more on part 3, so I'm just going to go to part 3. Like for example, okay, so maybe this is, I'm not sure if this is clear on your screen. Maybe it's not, but these are actually some samples of the essays from part 3, and also some of the suggestions and ideas on how the students can score the highest marks. Okay. So I talked to Mr. Jennedy about sharing all these materials. So don't worry about that. You can contact me. I will give you the contact info, and I can share all these materials to you after this. Okay, I need to hook up. the charger. Okay, now we're good. Let's continue. Okay. So one of the things that the insights that we got that I think I would like to highlight in this module is, like, for example, on this part right here. So we know that the question exam, the SPM question will keep evolving. Um, we know this by every day. I mean, every year we talk about the surprises or the little changes here and there that we see in the actual SPM paper. So, one of the things that we notice are, like, for example, the command words and also the question words. So, for example, if you look at the bullet points in this sample here, part two, the command words are like provide, explain, describe, and then followed by the WH questions, like how questions or a why question. So it's very important for the students, for the candidates, to understand what does these command words mean. All right, and so we actually provide some of the example of these command words and what do they actually mean. Okay, let's go back to the slide. Can we go back to the slides? Uh, the PowerPoint slides, please. All right. Okay. Now, so what I will share in this whole presentation will be these three main um, ideas. Okay. So I will first talk about the analysis, about past year questions, and also we will revisit the descriptor. Okay. I think that is also a very important document for us to look at when we talk about how to support the students to achieve the highest marks in the exam. And so after that, we will look at some focus areas. So focus areas are like some of the ideas or the insights that we get from the questions, and also from some teaching ideas from my own experiences that I will share with you, and also some recommendation. The further um, programs or activities that we can do to continue uh, to support the students with their preparation for the exam. Okay, now let's start with the analysis. What does the descriptor say? So this is what I usually do when I want to um, get the students to understand the idea of how they can get the highest marks in writing for all the sections. So I will introduce this to them, and then say it in a language that they can understand, and also highlight some of the keywords um, in here, and then explain to them how they can actually achieve this when they write. So I think this awareness is very important because it helps them to be alert and prepare how to actually achieve this. All right. So now, okay, so I'm just going to introduce another worksheet that I created after looking at these descriptors to help the students to achieve the specific skills in here. Like, for example, if you look at the language, we know that range of sentence structures are very important, and also how is it that they um, can achieve the level of being flexible in their expressions when they describe their ideas on the topic or the questions given, right? So I'm just going to show you another worksheet that I created especially for this. So let's go to sentence structure PDF. Okay, so why is it that it is important for the students to be aware of um the other one, sorry, sentence structures. Sentence structures, yes, this one. Yeah. Okay, so I designed this worksheet because I want the students to be aware of the sentence structures that they use in their essay. Okay, so because I think in the minds of the students, when they answer questions, they don't actually plan on what kind of sentence structure that they use, because I think this is very automatic. Like whatever ideas that they have, they will plan something and then they will just write um, uh, the piece of writing, for example. And I think when we ask the students the kinds of sentence structures that they use, so probably some of them will be aware, and maybe most of them will just write based on the skills, the current skills that they have, and probably that is when you can see how much they're actually aware on how it is important to write range of sentence structures. So the way I create this worksheet is, so I talked about structure of an effective paragraph, right? Like for example, the main ideas, the supporting details, and then I will also write the, the specific sentence structure that I want them to use. So I noticed that from a specific practice like this, um, it actually forced them to pause, okay, and then it helps them, or it encourages them to have this thinking process where they actually focus on two things at the same time, focus on the ideas and also focus on a sentence structure that they can use to actually express that ideas um, volu- purposely. Yeah. Okay, and then I will write sentence starters if you need to. So depending on the level of the students, you will know what kind of supports that the students need. You can do a lot of things with this worksheet to add more things to it, or to do adjustment to suit the need and also the level of your students. Okay. Okay, so there are times when, especially for a really good students in my class, where I will actually ask them to use all complex sentences for all of their sentences, just to like play around with the idea that how do you actually use complex sentences in your essay. Okay, now let's go back to the slide. Let's go back to the slide. Okay, so that is how I actually use the ideas, or get or be inspired with this descriptor, and actually write specific worksheets or practices in the classroom to focus on that skill, to develop it, and turn it into a habit where the student can practice and actually use it in the actual exam, SPM exam. Okay. So that's why I think it's very important for us to go back to sentence structures, especially to support the less able ones. Because I believe that in my experiences, I'm not sure if you have the same um, experience, uh, that there is no way students can write anything if they do not know how to write simple sentences. Okay, so and then and I found it very useful with my uh, students, who the less able ones, to actually start again, to go to the basic of reintroducing type of simple sentences, and I will slowly build that um, into other types of sentence structures. So I noticed that when I give them the when I give them the worksheet, they will actually ask me questions like, for example, do we have to like, should I use this sentence structure, or should I use that sentence structure? So that tells me, that feedback actually tells me that the students actually now aware of the sentence structures when they write. Okay. Um, let's continue. Okay, now let's look at the focus areas. Hang on, I think I skipped a slide. Okay, let's look at the past year's question from 2021 and 2024. So when you look at these past year questions and when you do your analysis, right, there are a few things that actually can give you like a lot more insights that you can use as ideas to write a worksheet or to turn it into a specific practices in your classroom, right? So, for example, in 2023, for question number four is was an article is on memorable photograph. This and then when we look at the trends on how the questions kept changing every year, that helped us to understand a little bit on how the questions were written, and then probably it will inspire you to try new ideas on how to introduce the students to more skills or more practices that will um, help them to prepare for the exam. So what do I actually mean by that? So I will show you this slide. So the focus areas, okay? So there's some tips and reminders. Okay, let me check. Let me just break. Okay, so just make sure that I don't skip any slide. Okay. Now what have we seen in part two and part three of the SPM questions so far? So we noticed things like mix genre. Okay, like for example, that very question just now in 2024, question number four, a memorable photograph. So one of the questions asked the candidate to actually tell about the photograph. So naturally, they will describe uh, the photograph, which it probably sounds like a story. All right, and then the next question, they have. I think I have. Hang on. I think I have the example. Maybe not here. Okay. So what I am trying to say is that there's a part of the question will sounds like they are required to tell a story, and then the next question, the content questions, will ask them to go back to actually writing an essay. So this can be tricky and quite confusing for candidates who are not aware of the genre. Okay, so I think that's why it's very important for the students to be aware of this, how the genre can be mixed in one question. Okay, and also we noticed there are simplified question. I think in the previous years we saw that the questions were in like a paragraph, like for example a questions on an article, for example, like you have seen a notice, da, 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 da. So the way like the format of the question was like in a paragraph, and last year we noticed that they are now in simplified questions and they are in actually clear WH questions in a bullet points form. Okay, and then we also noticed the command words plus the WH question. I already mentioned about this previously, and also we also noticed questions where it can be a change of focus, which can also be tricky to I think most candidates. So what I mean by change of focus is that, for example, there was a review question on an advertisement. So in our everyday life, or the students are actually familiar with, when we talk about a review, we talked about the products or we talked about the services, for example. But that specific question actually asks students not to review the product of the advertisement, but to review the advertisement itself. So if the students are not careful on how the focus of the question actually can change as opposed to what they are actually familiar with, that can be a problem. Okay, and also some unfamiliar topics or issues. So, like for example, the report question last year was on school websites, for example. So maybe some schools do not have websites. Some of the, like maybe some candidates, they're not familiar with how a school websites look like, or maybe the related vocabulary. They do not have enough vocabulary to actually talk about school websites. That can also be a problem. So this gives us some idea uh, to think of exercises or practices where you will keep on exposing the students to some things that probably they're familiar with, but it can be tricky or confusing when something is actually changed in that specific topic, for example. Okay, now let me just, okay, so what should you focus on? So the awareness of genre is very important. I have just mentioned that because if there is a situations where the question actually the question is actually a mixed genre, so it's very important for a student to be aware of genre in terms of the format, in terms of um, the registers, in terms of the vocabulary that they actually need to use when they write in a specific genre. Okay, and also there must be a balanced focus on the content question, especially on the narrative question. I will explain more on this, I think, in the next slide. Yeah. Okay. We will go very fast after this, because actually the next slides are examples of everything that I am talking about right now and the things that I've mentioned before. Okay. So, and also do not overtrain. So why this issue is very important. Uh, is very important about try not to overtrain the students. What do I mean by this? Is that when you train the student in a specific format, or maybe in a specific way of writing or answering a question, for example. So the moment that question change a little bit, like for example, when I'm already mentioned about how the focus can change, or how suddenly something that is familiar, and then it becomes unfamiliar because of maybe there's a change in the topic, or maybe
Hi, I think Cikgu Syaharil is disconnected. Are you there, Cikgu Syaharil?
can I
All right.
am I
Are
back
you there?
on?
All right. Yes, you're back on.
Yes. Okay. All right. Um, do not overtrain. Yeah, so that can be a huge problem when the students are already in the habit of writing something in a specific way, and then they're not flexible enough to actually adapt to what the questions require them to do. Okay, right? Okay. And next one. So, what should you focus on? So, some ideas are here, like use your voice. Like the students need to extend their writing skills, not just knowing probably the strategies to use how to write an introduction, for example. So they need to, especially for the more able ones, they need to start to how they actually write um, like real writers, like how to use their creativity and how to use their own voice when they express their opinion. I think that is very important to support the more able students to be able to do. Okay, direct questions for direct answers. As we know that for the content questions, for every part, they are consistent. It is always the same. The descriptive for content for every part is the same from part one until part three. So it's very important for the student to understand this concept um, of a direct question need direct answer, because we know that when, for example, especially in part 3, when the content questions are longer, so if they're not careful with some of the keywords in the questions, when they actually write that in the essay, the way they express their opinions is not fully informed because they forget some of the other keywords in the questions. I think it is very important for the students to be aware of this. And also watch out for factual information. So factual information will be, for example, like if the questions talk about like a real person or talk about like genre of music, so they need to understand that some of the things they cannot just make it up, and this must like use the facts, or like the actual information out there. Okay, and also planning. Okay, why planning is important and how this can be done during the exam. So I'm just gonna, okay, so from everything that I've mentioned from the beginning, so what are you thinking? um, Probably you already have some insights, like new insights on how the next a SPAM question for this year, it's going to be like. Okay, so probably I just randomly put maybe there's no story question. I don't know. That's just my prediction. Okay, maybe that's not going to happen. Okay, now let's look at the genre analysis. So this one refers to what I mentioned earlier as the awareness of genre, like how the awareness of genre is actually very important. So one of the things that you can do is doing a genre analysis. So I noticed this even from like a very good students, when they write, sometimes you can see from their word choice, or you can notice from um, um, yeah, the words that they use, they are not aware of the genre. For example, whether they have to be informal or they need to be more formal, for example. Um, because they are so trained, like for example, to use like specific cursive devices, so they will memorize these specific cursive devices and actually use them without knowing that how it actually changed their voices. So that's why I think it's very important for this. So these are so I'm not going to expand on this one. So these are just some of the specific feature or the over archaic of structure that each genre has and how it is different from one another. Okay, and so let's go to the worksheet. Know your essay. Know your essay. Okay, so this one I especially created to make the students to discover or to identify the different elements or the formats or the difference in vocabulary, for example, in each of these um, samples. Okay, so they have to find out, they have to guess what is the genre, and then is it formal or informal, and what is the format. So I think this is still useful, even though they are so used, like they know what are actually the formats of all the genres. I think it is still useful for the students to keep on like refreshing their knowledge, and help them to be continuously to be aware of the differences on this genre. Or you can actually use this again to actually find out how much they are aware, and they know how this essay are actually different from one another in terms of the format, in terms of the registers, in terms of the vocabulary choice, and things like that. Okay, so let's go back to the slides. Okay, I think I have 5 more minutes. Okay, let's go. So balance focus on the content question. So I'm just going to um, uh, okay. So this is what I noticed in my class when I talked about writing a narrative. Which I think to most of us, we like to think that narrative question is like one of the difficult ones to write, and not many students um, have the skills to write a good narrative, for example. Okay, so the problem that I notice when they answer narrative is that there is an imbalance focused on the content question. So what do I mean by this? So when we look at this question here, for example, it actually tells you um, the plan on how the story is actually will be like for so this specific question here is you're given this line to start with, and then you see, and then the second content question is the descriptions of the room and also his actions to free himself and how the incident affected him. So in our everyday class, when we talk about writing a story, we talk about the plot line, we talk about the story mountain, right? So it's very important for students to be aware where to put these content questions on that story mountain and how much treatment that they should give to give enough space for these content questions to develop in the story. So more often than not, when I read students essay, they're actually not aware of like plotting or putting these content questions in the story mountain, where they probably will just describe or answer the last content question briefly towards the very end of the essay in just few lines, which can be a problem. Okay. All right. So, like for example, so I will use a diagram like this and then actually test the students to make sure they're aware in which part of the story that the content questions go. Okay. Um, okay. This is the same goes with. So now I think we're talking about. We will start to talk about planning also. So this is, for example, a review question. So they need to identify the content questions, and then it actually tells them how the layout of the whole essay is going to be like based on the order of the content questions, right? So after the introduction, the second paragraph will be like the title of the song that they like and also the singer. And so the next paragraph will be the next content question, and the next paragraph will be the following content question. So they actually can imagine in their heads that like the brief layout on what they should actually write in each of the paragraph. Okay, so this is so why this is important for them to visually see this in their mind is that so that they actually give a balanced focus to each and every content question in their paragraph. Okay, so do not overtrain. I think I already mentioned this because we know that the explain question will keep on evolving. So there will be a lot of surprises and a lot of changes that happen. Then the students need to be flexible enough to be ready for that to happen. Okay, so so what are the changes that we have seen so far? Like there will be a tricky prompt. There will be change in the questioning format. Like for example, I mentioned about the command words and also the WH questions. There will be a change of focus, like the question when I talked about the advertisement, and also there will be a change of genres between parts. So maybe sometimes they will like shift the genres, and then the students need to be aware. Like for example, if the student are so trained that in part two there will always be an essay, for example, and then probably if there is a slight change to that, and then they will start to think like that question is difficult to do. All right. So what do I mean by tricky prompts? Like for example, last year's question on the narrative. The prompt was do I have the example here? No, I think I don't remember. Okay, the prompt was "Good morning, passengers." Good morning, passengers. So, like using like the students' background knowledge about these announcements, probably something that will be like very quickly that came into their mind will be like an aeroplane, for example, or maybe a bus. Okay, so depending on their choice, their decision from their background knowledge, and then when they try to actually write the essay, a problem may or may not happen when they try to answer the next content question. So it's very important for us to let the students be aware of how some of the prompts can influence the way they think, like it will influence their thinking process, and then they have to pause a little, like for a brief moment, and to see that if the first idea that they get actually fits to answer all the content questions. Okay. Yeah. So this is another idea that actually I start to use in my class, where I really want to train the students to become writers instead of just write, um, or to answer the questions to, and focusing so much on getting the marks, for example. So um, I'm really interested to look more into this, on how we can encourage the students to use their own voice, focusing on the talents and the creativity, to actually help them to become a better writers. Okay, I already talked about direct questions, direct answers. Watch out for factual information. I already mentioned this just now. If the questions are on like specific genre of music, or maybe celebrities or historical figures, titles, sport events, probably probably they need to have like a real background knowledge on this. So which means they have to do some research on this, and prepare for the exam. Okay, right. Now let's talk about the planning very quickly. I'm just gonna show you like a very quick idea on how the students plan their essay, and help them how to write a quick and effective introduction and also a conclusion. So I noticed that sometimes we know that when students write the essay, they are heavily relying on their instinct, and what the practices that they had before, and use the experiences to write. So I think it is also important, um, for the student, and they sometimes maybe do not focus on how to write a good introduction and also conclusion, and they always have questions like, so what should I actually include in introductions, or what should I include in the conclusion, right? So I had a conversation today with my students, when I actually talked about writing introduction, on how they can actually use their own like unique voice into this. Like for example, like for example, we um let's say the question is on like favorite sports celebrity, right? So let's say we are talking about Dato Lee Chong Wei, for example. So the way I look at Dato Lee Chong Wei, and the way you look at Dato Lee Chong Wei might be different, right? So the way my perspective on him will be my unique voice. So how is it that you use this to introduce this character or this individual, for example? So that will inspire you and give you some idea on how you can think of a topic, and also think about what is the best way to introduce the topic. Okay, so and you can actually get some ideas from the question. So like for example, we're almost come to the end of the presentation. Like for example, question number 5, last year. I think this was last year, on the school website. So when you look at the content question, it actually tells you what you should focus on. So like question number 1, what do you like most about the website? Do you think it is user friendly? And then what are the features? So what is the main keyword here? The features, right? So the students can use these aspects on how important it is for school website to have a very interesting and user-friendly feature, for example. So features right here is the keyword. So this is a specific way on how they can actually introduce the topic by using the keywords that they can see from the content question. Okay, so some teaching methods that I would like to introduce to, not to introduce, maybe to remind you, because this is something that is drawing from our English curriculum. For example, like medals and mission. I think this is very important for all students. Okay, it's very important for them to get your feedbacks on their essay. So one of the ways that you can do is, if you still remember about this medals and mission, highlights one thing that the student did well in their essay, and then you help them how to further advance from that specific point in their learning by telling them, okay, what is the next assignment, so what is the next mission that you should achieve. Okay, and also I noticed that it's very useful for you to spend some time to give individual consultation for good students to for them to keep on expanding their skill, polish on the talents, polish on the macro skills and leadership. So especially on leadership, what I did in my school is that I get all the students, like the good ones, to put them in one group and run a district level program. So last year I did language games day, and this year I plan to do another program. I call it English SPM Carnival. SPM Carnival will be run by students. Okay, so this will give them the opportunity to put their skills into practice, like planning, leadership, speaking, listening, things like that. Okay. So I think I'm just gonna end this very quickly. I have a YouTube channel, so find me on YouTube. And also, this is my email. You can contact me, or you, if you want to get my line by, you can contact Mr. Jennedy. So thank you very much. That's all I have for tonight.
You're most welcome, and thank you so much to Cikgu Syaharil for that insightful and practical sharing. And I'm sure that everyone has picked up useful strategies that we can apply in our classroom. So we have few questions on YouTube. There are about 100 plus people watching you at the moment, Syaharil.
Oh
What have
wow!
do you have
Um,
anything to say to them?
Hi everyone. I hope what I've shared will be useful to everybody.
All right. Okay, so we have a question from Muhammad Hanafi. This is regarding overtrain. So do not overtrain. You said do not overtrain just now. So be flexible instead. So what's your comment on this?
Yeah. So I think one of the concerns about like overtraining is when the students are uh, so rigid into like thinking like this is specific way to do this is specific way to do that, and then so the moment there will be like some changes in the questioning format during the SPM questions, so this is good student, this is when good student will make mistakes, so they need to be flexible and to pause a little bit and be careful so that they can answer the question accordingly.
Yes, I have to agree with you. I think it's better for us to be flexible because of the level of the students, right? So before we go on to the next question, there are a few things that I need to remind everyone. I'm going to put up the link for Padlet reflection. So I need your support and your cooperation to write a few things on the what is your biggest takeaway from our session for tonight. So please write a little bit on our Padlet. Okay, so the next question, Syaharil, comes also from YouTube, comes from Cikgu Debra ni Tira. Okay, this is regarding the genre analysis. Since most of the essay format requires a formal tone of writing, is it better to just train pupils to master that following the genre analysis? So what's your thought on this?
I think it all depends on that specific genre and also the purpose of the genre itself. Like, for example, if it is about reviewing a theme park as opposed to maybe reviewing a website. So, like different types of reviews will have like different purpose. Like for example, is it to entertain? Is it to persuade? Or is it like to promote an idea of probably like a formal things, like context? Like for example, a website. So it all depends on the specific question. So I think coming back to when we talk about being flexible, so this is when it is important for the students to have the skills to actually adapt on what the question wants them to do.
All right, awesome. I think that makes sense, right? Okay, so before we go on with our another few questions, I'm going to share with you the registration link now. So please copy the link first, so you can do it at the end, probably after the session ends, so that you
Yeah.
have more time to watch this the few end minutes of our session. But just want to share the registration link to all of us. All right. So another
Mr.
question.
Jennedy,
Yes.
Yeah, I actually forgot to send the link for my Padlet, so I'm not sure if we still have time to just share that out, and then I can see the teachers' feedback on there, and it will be useful for me to actually maybe create activities or worksheets,
Yeah, sure.
which I will eventually share to everybody. Yeah.
All right. So we have actually another Padlet that Mr. Syaharil has prepared. This is different from the reflection Padlet that I have prepared. So technical, can you please copy paste the link for Cikgu Syaharil's Padlet? This is another Padlet, okay, for Cikgu Syaharil's. All right. So another question from YouTube, Cikgu
Yes.
Syaharil. This is from Cikgu Fred. Fred, did I get your name correct, Cikgu? Usually, students will encounter problem when it comes to writing the concluding sentence in each body paragraph. Any tips on this? Problem?
Yeah. So
Yes, please.
yes.
Carry on.
Yeah. So I think our like in our like our students' normal practice or what they already get used to when writing a body of paragraph, it's a strange idea that each paragraph actually has a conclusion, so they don't. I'm not sure if they're aware of like each paragraph needs a concluding like statement. Usually they will confuse that with the idea of like having like the actual concluding paragraph at the end of it, right? So I think yeah, this is a very good question. So the way I introduce this idea to my student is that like for example, so when you have an introduction and then you have a conclusion, so I actually ask them like the actual concluding paragraph, like why do you need the conclusion paragraph? So ask them what is the purpose of it. So maybe they will say something like to summarize, or maybe to like make or maybe to maybe call for action or things like that. So the way I reintroduce this concept to them is that the concluding paragraph is actually the introduction paragraph. It's just the same thing, but you just have to say it again slightly in a different way because you want to like make the like to reiterate the introduction before you actually stop the essay. So if you talk about that concluding statement in a paragraph, it's actually the main idea. It is the main idea or the first sentence of the paragraph written slightly in a different way to remind uh, the reader on what is the main idea for that specific paragraph.
Yeah, I have to agree with you because when I teach my students, I always ask them to write a concluding statement in each body paragraph. This is different from the overall conclusion. Am I right, Cikgu Syaharil?
Yes,
All right.
exactly.
Okay. So do we have more question? I think we have another one. What is the importance of having this is regarding sentence structure in essay writing. So
Mm.
you talk about sentence structure just now. What are the importance of having different sentence structure in essay writing?
Okay, so as you have seen in the descriptor, the requirement for them to get full marks, five, they need to have a range of grammatical structures. So, what do we know about what grammatical structure actually means? So, one of it is actually sentence structure. So, they really need to master the skills on how to write more complex sentences or like compound complex sentences in part three for them to get higher marks. That's how important it is that they really need to show the ability to write more complex sentences. Yes.
Right. So there's a comment by one of the Cikgus, one of the teachers in the in YouTube. Drafting is also a problem among my students due to the time constraint. Any tips about time management? This is actually a question. Any tips about time management? They have the ideas in mind, but lack of drafting leads to poor organization of ideas. This is another question from Cikgu Frey on YouTube.
What I have mentioned in my presentation just now, something that they can really do very quickly on the planning is by looking at the question itself, because the way the content questions is ordered reflects the basic structure or the layout of the essay. So they can first get the idea from there, would actually tell them very quickly what is on the first paragraph, or what is in the second paragraph, and what is the end of the paragraph. I think that really works for questions like article and a review, especially. But for the narrative questions, you see that for the story to be effective, you know that they have to locate it properly on the plot line, or there will be a problem in transition of the story if they are not careful on that part, especially. Um, yes. So I think if they really look at the questions and really understand how the question is structured, that is actually the first step of planning that they can do. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much for the insightful sharing that we have just had with you, Cikgu Syaharil. So I think that concludes our session for tonight. So, teachers, before we end our session, please fill in the registration form and also the Padlet. We have two Padlet, one for NELCoNS, another one is from Cikgu Syaharil. So I hope you take time. You can copy the link first, the registration link, as well as the Padlet for both Syaharil and for NELCoNS. And do not forget to follow our official NELCoNS Facebook page, because we will be sharing tips and things like these webinars. We have another one coming up very, very soon, which we will share on our Facebook page as well. Syaharil, is there any final word before we end the session?
Okay. I want to answer like one question, just one question very quickly.
Sure,
I
sure.
know I saw in this chat box. What are your advice for students who are considered A1 and A2 students? So this really works in my class. To support students in this category is you need to reintroduce sentence structure to them. So start from simple sentences. So there are few types, at least maybe 5 or 6 types of simple sentences. Make sure they master this, because that is the only way for them to um, develop their writing skills from the very beginning before they can actually grow. So without sentence structures, there's almost virtually nothing you can do, and the students cannot even start thinking to write. So, and then also reintroduce ideas in chunks, because we know that they lack of vocabulary, and then we don't have time to work on vocabulary. So introduce chunk of ideas in phrases, and then you keep on recycle these ideas on different questions. So you will just notice naturally that they will use the ideas, and then they will ask you question. Like, for example, at least in my experience, the students were like, teacher, like, can I use this idea from this question for this question? So that feedback just tells you they actually know and they have learned something useful to help them to write. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you for the technical crew. Thank you. Big thanks to Mr.
You're
Jennedy
most
for
welcome,
this
Cikgu Syaharil.
opportunity to speak with everyone. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for joining in tonight. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so again, on behalf of NELCoNS, we would like to sincerely thank you, Cikgu Syaharil, for his valuable sharing, and thank you for all for your participation tonight. So I've seen many comments in the YouTube chat box. Cikgu Syaharil, Cikgu Sheldon, thanks for the sharing. Cikgu Fred, thanks for the sharing. Cikgu Norizan, thanks for the sharing. Cikgu Ed Ku, thank you, Cikgu Syaharil, very helpful sharing. And also Cikgu Ebony, thank you for the sharing. I guess you can read all of the comments and the question again in our YouTube, which will be available. It will last forever for YouTube. We do have a little bit of technicalities with Facebook, but it will be up in a moment for Facebook. But in the meantime, you can view this session again, because this session will be shared on our Facebook NELCoNS official Facebook page for you to always refer from time to time. So again, don't forget to fill in the registration form. The Padlet, there are two Padlets, one for NELCoNS and another one is for Cikgu Syaharil. So just a reminder to everyone that this is a series of 12-week webinars. This is only our second week. We would have another week next week. So please subscribe or follow our Facebook NELCoN official Facebook page. All right. So thank you so much again, everyone. Good night and have a nice one. Thank you for your participation tonight.